Hello, my name is Paula Leopold and thank you for joining me. We're going to do a colored pencil study with this ripe watermelon along with the juicy red strawberries. I hope you enjoy the project. Let me tell you how we'll begin. First of all, I'm using white Stonehenge paper. It's a high quality art paper. It's a vellum acid-free paper that you can buy at any art supply store or online at one of the art supply places. I begin with my white pencil, and a key to successful colored pencil is that you need to start with a very soft, light pressure. The white will hardly show against the white of the paper. You really won't be able to see it until we get the next color in it. But if you start too heavily, you'll build up a waxy resistance too quickly, and you won't be able to get the deep, rich layering effect. This color I'm using is my lime peel, and I want to put just a light coverage at the bottom of this all the way around, so with a real light pressure. But let me give you a little tip. If you flip this around and come with your pencil facing this direction, it will give you a more natural blending effect. So a heavier pressure right at the very edge, and then lighten up as you come in towards the white. I like to do a small section at a time, so I'll outline on the bottom, and then with small circular little strokes I'll blend upward into the white, easing up on my pressure. So start with the heavier pressure outlining, and then these real small soft circular strokes as I blend, and you'll get a very nice gradation of values, so you won't have any hard line between the lime peel and the white. My next color will be my kelp green, and you're going to need a good sharp point on that pencil. I'll start with a small little area, and then I'll blend as I go. Now the nice thing about kelp is it's a soft green. It's not a real strong green, but it is slightly darker than our lime peel. We'll put a little area in, and then we still need to blend it because you don't want to have an outlined appearance. The key here is not to have it as wide as the lime peel, so you may need to come back and put a little wider lime peel area. To go ahead and use our blush pink in this next area. I'll be using my pencil on the side as opposed to directly on the tip. I don't have a real sharp pencil. It's not real dull either, but what we want to do is just barely lay it on where that graphite tracing was, and then with little circular strokes I'm going to soften upward into the watermelon area, and then I'm going to just gently soften downward into the white rind area, actually blending it into the white. So we don't want to see any hard lines. I'm very lightly going to use a little French gray, 30% in the white area. It's a porous texture, and to help create high lows and irregularities, we're going to just very lightly use a buffer color between that blush pink and our lime peel below. You won't hardly be able to see it, but there is some discoloration. I'm using carmine red in this next step, and I'm going to begin to just pencil over those little irregular graining marks that we laid in with our graphite. And these are pretty thin at this point. You won't need a very heavy pressure. We'll return to our blush pink. Once again, we'll use it on the side of the pencil, ensuring that we're not going to get too heavy of pressure. You're going to be able to see through to your paper, but we'll get at least a very soft coverage of this blush pink. I'm going to be using my carmine red once again, and we're going to fill in this lower section on the right half of the watermelon. I'm going to use the side of my pencil and just gently begin filling in. It'll appear just slightly darker than that blush pink up above. When you come into that blush pink, though, blend as you go. It's very important, though, that you have all of these irregular markings as you come through here. And if you see another seed area that you want to distinguish, go ahead and fill it in at this time. But don't have that line too straight. We want it to have just lots of interest, a little veining that we're going to begin to create. And then once we've filled it in, we can come back with a little additional heavier pressure, still using that carmine red and creating more of that veining effect that gives watermelon that interest. And it doesn't have to be exactly like you see. Every piece of watermelon is so uniquely different that you can get by with lots of individual variation. I see this line up at the top just a little darker. Also, this top edge could use a little bit heavier color, so we'll use a little bit of carmine red over that original blush pink. Come down the side just slightly. Using our French gray 90%, we'll fill in some of those seed areas to create the blacker seeds. With our crimson red, we're going to go ahead and create some of these buried seed areas. And so I know there's a seed underneath here, but it's still covered with a little slice of the watermelon. So just gently fill those in a seed shape. Then around some of the other seeds, we're going to want to go back around and maybe outline. But the thing about outlining around these seeds is once you put that line in, you can first score it like I'm doing here, but then you're going to want to go back and just gently soften it with some really tiny circular strokes to blend it away from the seed. Now at this point we're going to slow down and complete one side. This is my carmine red and I'm filling it in just a little heavier into some of those lower portions and into some of the veins. At the top I see I need to come back with some additional blush pink. I'm still on the side of my pencil, but I'm filling in with a little heavier pressure, trying to completely fill in the pores of the paper. And then at this point I can take that blush pink down below. I don't want to use a darker color like the carmine red all the time because it might make that meaty look of the watermelon look too red. The problem with the color, if it looks too red, is it looks like it's starting to dry out. Let me also talk to you at this time about a burnishing technique. Burnishing does a couple things. In colored pencils, we have to layer color upon color, whereas in painting, we would take our palette knife and mix the colors to get the proper hue. But not so with the colored pencils. And so burnishing does two things. It binds color to color, pushing them together, helping them to look richer. It also helps you to fill in the pores of the paper. And the pencil color that I'm using to burnish with is going to be mainly my blush pink, but I can definitely go back into some carmine red and further burnish. That carmine red is still a really soft red color. It's not like the crimson, so on this light side it will work really great to darken and to burnish. But switch back and forth either from the blush pink or the carmine red. So I'm almost finished. I will go back with a tiny amount with a very light pressure of that crimson red just to deepen just slightly, not too much and not all of the areas. You definitely still want to see a lot of carmine. We're just simply creating a few deeper veining areas. And then back to some additional carmine red at the very top of the watermelon, laying it in with a firm line on the top, but blending it into the blush pink as we go to darken the deepest point of that slice. So towards the back half of that, I'll use a linear direction with my raspberry, blending as I come towards the front of the cut. Carmine red, and soften the two together. This will also burnish it at this time, binding color to color and filling in a few of those pores. Let me show you how to develop some of those deep inset seed areas. I'm using my crimson red and just outlining around the seed. That will make that seed look whiter, keep it a nice firm shape on that outer edge and right next to the seed. And look how it looks like it's really inset into that watermelon, and it gives it nice depth and texture. You can do a few of those, creating that little valley around that seed. I'll use that crimson red to establish some additional veining lines that go through the side of the watermelon. But I do want to caution you, remember how I referred earlier to having that dried up old watermelon appearance? And if you fill it in solidly with the crimson, it's going to be too dark and it'll look like it's starting to dehydrate. We'll come back later with some carmine red and fill it in more solidly. Let's go ahead and fill in some more solid seed areas on that right side. This is my cream. It doesn't matter if you use cream or cream plus white. Add a little bit of shading to these lighter seeds using your French gray 30%. And with a real small circular stroke, I'm blending it upward into that cream. So it's darker at the bottom of that seed and lighter at the top. You can use a little bit of carmine red around some of the seed areas on the right side, and then come back and soften even with a little bit of white. Now I'm further burnishing and filling in just a few of those pores, but remember, I don't want them all completely filled in. Otherwise, it'll look like a dried piece of watermelon. I do want it a little darker where the two halves meet, so that color will be your crimson red. So get it just a slight bit darker. If you don't have enough of the little white stringy veins, come back with your white pencil and just etch those in. Come back with the carmine red to create the firm line right next to that white highlight, which helps me to see it's actually inset into the side of the watermelon. And please do give yourself permission to go back and forth from one color to another to achieve the final appearance. Now some of these zigzagged areas are looking a little too pointed, so I'll come back with a little carmine red and soften those so they look a little bit more natural. I want to redefine just a few of those little veining areas with my crimson red and help them to look like they're a little deeper inset so it's not so perfectly smooth. And I do want to tell you that when you're doing something that's a little bit more abstract, you have to give yourself the ability to be slightly different than the final appearance. And once again, I encourage you, look at different pieces of watermelon. Each one will be different and unique. Thank you so much for watching this little snippet of the watermelon, which is in full taught in the summer complement project with the watermelon, strawberries, and the little cloth. I hope you've enjoyed this and will visit my website to see more DVDs. My website is www.paulaleopold.com, and have fun penciling. Thanks so much.